Hey everyone, good evening, and welcome to the King Angel Show, where together we react, learn, and discuss a wide range of topics that go from true crime, mythology, murder mystery, all the way to music, movies, art, picture books, like today, because today's a special episode. Uh, we do culture, graphic design, a little bit of everything. I'm your host, King Angel, your favorite variety streamer, and today we have, like I said before, it's a special episode. We have a book that I'll be showing off. It's a picture book, and it's called Haunted Places by Grenville. And it just basically, it's images of different locations around the world that are supposed to be haunted. It gives a little description of each place. And yeah, we'll go through all of them, and hopefully, if we have a little bit of time, we can go through a video or two of fascinating horror that I do have ready. They're rather short videos. I didn't pick anything long, so that I can be able to balance time better. So, yeah. Again, this is a special episode of our True Crime and Murder Mystery Wednesdays. Normally, you guys know I do live case reactions and discussions with chat, but I thought maybe today I could do something a little bit more different. I appreciate everyone that's here. Joseph, thank you for being here. Saw you come in and say hi. Uh, I actually, let me open chat because I don't have my monitor connected. Thank you for appreciate that, host Joseph. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Uh, Before I start, you guys know I always give you a quick reminder that I am live on Twitch Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wednesdays for True Crime and Murder Mystery, we do 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Saturdays is our variety show where we start at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's when we do our different topics, mythology, culture. We've done trivia, we've done nostalgia, a little bit of everything for Saturday's show. Episode replays are available on my YouTube. Episode replays and clips of said episodes are available on my YouTube channel, so you can definitely check that out. And if you're bored, you can just put them on random, or you can watch them because I slice them up by parts, so you can do part 1 through 6. There you go. And the support is always appreciated. I also have a Discord channel, Discord server, actually. I'm trying to create a community of like-minded individuals that are interested in topics that I cover on the show. Bossek, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. These topics range from true crime, murder mystery, like I said, mythology, am I the antagonist, a little bit of everything. Again, I am trying to grow that Discord community. So if you can, go ahead and join. It's rather quiet right now, but the goal is to have it filled with a good amount of people chatting it up about, again, all these topics that I cover on the show, and of course, anything else. I am on social media as well. I'm on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok as well. I'm always posting videos and stuff there, so definitely check me out if you have time. And yeah, that's basically it for that portion. I also have a suggestion box. I always like to mention that it's in my About section. Anything I can improve as an entertainer, anything I can improve about my show, any opinions that you have, feel free to use that suggestion box to kind of put that information in. Give me 1 second because my cat, of course, decided to jump into the litter box right when I started stream, because of course. So there'll come a moment when I'll have to mute it. Look at it. Okay, there's that. Give me 1 second. Check this one out, Yosef. I actually cut this one. Oh wait, were you able to hear it? Shit, if you weren't able to hear it, I'll put it again, because that could have well happened. It's cat, dude.
We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight.
And B.O., he only gets to a certain part, but I made sure to give him the rest of that. Jeez, dude. One sec. There we go. Awesome. So yeah, like I said before, we're going to be going through this Haunted Places book. It's actually pretty interesting. Even to think that there are locations like this in the world that still exist and are, you know, considered haunted. Sweet. I'll give it 2 more minutes and then we'll jump into this book. Everyone that's here, I hope everyone had a great day. I hope you are staying hydrated with this heat. You done, buddy? You done? I'm doing pretty good. So far, so good. Keeping myself hydrated. It's been hitting 100 up here in Northern California these past couple days, and whew, it is hot. But other than that, all is well on my end of the block. But yeah, his heat is no joke. His heat is definitely not playing. 70s, that's good. That's actually not bad. That's like San Francisco weather. That's not bad at all. I don't know. Once it passes like 85 or 90, it's just it's the worst heat. Ah, I think it gets really dry as well. So yeah, it sucks. All right, I'll go ahead and start now. Start this shenanigan. Alright, we have Haunted Places. This way. Perfect. Let me see, maybe I'll zoom out a little bit. Boom. And this way, there we go. Put it right in the middle. And we're gonna do this a little bit different today. Haunted Places by Grenville. We'll chat. Yeesh. Yikes, it's a horrible thing. God damn you, Twitch. Sorry guys, give me 1 second. Cause Get the fuck out of here, my dude.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past.
Dude, what is this? What is going on with?
Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king.
Oh, ban this fucker. Get the fuck out of here.
Hail to the king, baby.
Hey, Munin. Sorry. That was... If that was meant to be a troll... Bye. Oh, someone wrote this really weird comment, and I just had to ban them real quick. I don't understand where that came from. Alright, so we have today haunted places. By Robert Grenville. Alright, so these are kind of the things that we're going to be seeing. Introduction. Okay, let's see. Do ghosts exist? Are hauntings real? Can the spirits of the dead interact with the living? If you are seeking a definitive answer to any of these questions, then this is not the book for you. However, if you wish to conduct your own investigation, then within this volume you will find a catalog of locations from private homes to abandoned institutions where some believe paranormal activity to take place. Why not visit and come to your own decision? For readers of a less active disposition, this book brings you images and stories from around the world of apparent hauntings and supernatural events. Some of the stories related here are horrific and barbarous in nature, including actions that would be regarded as crimes worthy of the highest sanction, yet they were condoned or even encouraged by official bodies at the time. Other events are tragic accidents with no blame attached to the living or the dead. Whether you are a believer or not, read on and discover a world of unexplained occurrences and strange tales. Thank you, Joseph, for that. That was completely and utterly unnecessary. Alright, castles and forts. Okay, so this is image on the left is Bangalore Fort, Rajasthan, India. Reputedly the most haunted spot in the whole of India. Bangalore Fort was supposedly either cursed by a sadhu, which is a holy man, whose house it overshadowed, or by a black magician who was crushed to death by a boulder enchanted by one of his own love potions. The Archaeological Survey of India has erected a sign outside the gate forbidding anyone to stay inside the fort during the hours of darkness. It is said that those who have tried have never been seen again. Well, okay, let's see over a little bit. Okay, so castles belong to an age of chivalry, adventure and good deeds performed by pious armored knights, but they also belong to an age of poor sanitation, primitive medicine, and the regular use of torture. To live in the Middle Ages was to live in a time of danger, at risk of death from disease and starvation, as much as from battle or violent robbery. This was the age of Vlad the Impaler, a man notorious for his cruelty to his thousands of victims, and robber barons who stole from the rich and poor alike. Many castles contained dungeons for imprisoning criminals and hostages, while executions were carried out in the courtyards of these great community buildings. During sieges, the occupants of a castle would be forced to live in dirty conditions, with little fresh food and water available. Even after castles had become obsolete for their main purpose as defensive strongholds, their strong walls and garrisons made them ideal for conversion to prisons. Given their long, rich history and the fact that many are now visited each year by thousands of tourists, it is unsurprising to discover that many castles have at least one ghost story attached to them. Dungeons are cold, dark places. Perhaps they attract the spirits of those who once perished there, or perhaps they cannot escape their chains even after death. Okay, so this is Bolsover Castle, Derbyshire, UK. Surrounded by burial grounds and pits full of plague victims, Bolsover has a long history of sightings of unusual phenomena. Builders and security guards have resigned after seeing lights and hearing noises, while items left in locked rooms have moved during the night. A grey lady is reported to haunt the grounds, and a ghostly child will hold the hands of visitors to the castle's gardens. On the left we have a tunnel, it's a tunnel, Chateau de Brissac, in Angers, France. A green lady has haunted the chateau since her murder in the 15th century. It is said Charlotte de Brissac was caught cheating with her lover by her husband Jacques. Here is, the same one. In a fit of rage, Jacques killed both of them. Charlotte is now seen dressed in her favorite green dress, but her face is that of a corpse with holes in place of her eyes. This is the interior of it. The chateau now belongs to the Duke of Brissac and the Duke's family. And the Duke's family have become accustomed to Charlotte's visitations and nocturnal noises. She is often found in the chapel, but will also startle guests in their bedrooms. Wow, they got used to the ghost there, huh? Whoa. Bran Castle, Brasov, Romania. Known today as Dracula's Castle, Bran was the seat of Vlad Tepes, or Vlad the Impaler, who tortured and killed many of his enemies. Among the ghosts said to haunt the castle are Vlad himself and Queen Maria of Romania, who used it as her royal residence before World War II. You know, this reminds me a little bit of where they filmed The Shining. So this is... Tori, thank you for joining. He is a real-life vampire. Vlad the Impaler, you correct? I appreciate you being here. Okay, so this beauty is called Chateau de Chambord, Loire et Cher, France. Built by King Francis I as a summer royal hunting lodge, the building was never intended to be inhabited or even heated, so it was abandoned after the king's death in 1547. The building was used as a field hospital during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870-71, and the ghosts of soldiers who died of their wounds while being treated there are said to roam the site. Exterior of the Chillingham Castle, Northumberland, UK. Close to the border with Scotland, this English castle is home to many a restless spirits. The Blue Boy, also known as the Radiant Boy, is supposed to be a young boy who saw documents on the Spanish Armada and was was walled up alive for his trouble. A child's skeleton was found during renovation works years later. Other supernatural residents include Lady Berkeley, whose husband ran off with her own sister, and John Sage, a former torturer reportedly responsible for the deaths of hundreds of Scots, who was torn apart by a crowd while being hanged for murder. Holy cannoli. Yeah, Munin. Looks like the Overlook Hotel. That other one that we saw. Alright, this one's called Corvin Castle, Hunedoara, Romania. Vlad Tepes, also known as Vlad the Impaler, was reputedly imprisoned here for 7 years and is thought to haunt the castle still. Local legend tells that some Turkish prisoners were promised their freedom in return for digging the castle's well. After 15 years of labor, they were beheaded instead, and their remains thrown into the well. Fort Adams, Newport, Rhode Island, USA. Visitors to this National Historic Landmark fort have reported being pushed and shoved by unseen forces. Various garrison soldiers met untimely ends at the fort, including one who shot his wife and then killed himself, and another who threw stones at a friend, who then shot him dead. Oops, sorry. Hammond Castle, Massachusetts, USA. Built by the inventor John Hammond as a wedding present for his wife in the 1920s, the castle even had its own Faraday cage to eliminate interference during the couple's attempts to commune with the dead. Okay, so the left, we have the great doors of the Hammond Castle, Massachusetts, USA. As well as his interest in spiritualism, Hammond was a keen collector of antiques and antiquities. His collection included a skull from a member of Columbus's crew and the tomb of a Roman child. And then the overleaf, basically, whole thing. Gargoyle, Hammond Castle, Massachusetts. Although his wife was buried elsewhere with her family, both Hammonds are reported to haunt their former home. A red-haired woman is frequently seen at weddings held at the castle, and disappears without warning. Other spirits, perhaps those invited during the seances held by the couple, have also been seen, and unexplained voices have been heard by visitors. Okay, so this is the overlay. This is the gargoyle. Okay, so this previous page, what we just saw, so this one is Old Fort Niagara, New York, USA. Originally built by the French on the mouth of the Niagara River in the 18th century, the fort was later captured by British and later still the Americans. Interior Old Fort, Niagara, New York, USA. Two French officers stationed at the fort competed for the attentions of a Native American woman. During a party, both being very drunk, they fought a duel and one killed the other. Realizing he would be executed for murder, the victor cut off the head to make it look like a Native American attack before dropping the headless body down a well to hide it. According to legend, several weeks later noises were heard from the well, and the figure of a headless officer emerged. The next day, the well was searched and the body found, and the murderer was subsequently tried and hanged for his crime. It is said that the figure climbs from the well every full moon and midnight to search for his head. Well, oh, sorry. Château de Fougueret in France. The chateau has become known for its supernatural occupants since new owners took over the building after it had stood empty for many years. Visitors have stayed overnight with the family report seeing figures and hearing voices ordering them to leave. On the left, we have the door to the Château de Fougueret, which is the one we just saw. The family themselves have had many encounters with the supernatural, including hearing and smelling people eating, and seeing strange figures at the window when they leave. A small girl named Alice, supposedly a child who died in 1924, sings nursery rhymes. Staircase of this same chateau. Another figure that has been sighted and even allegedly photographed is Felix, a man who died in 1898. The owners also claim that an unknown spirit, possibly with a dog, plays with their own pet dog. The building regularly hosts ghost hunters. Okay, the previous page we have Norwich Castle in Norwich, UK. I'll put it back so we can see it again. Norwich Castle. For much of its life, the castle was used as a prison. Robert Kett, the leader of a rebellion in Tudor times, was hanged from the castle walls in a gibbet, and sightings have been made of his ghostly corpse hanging on a wall, complete with its gibbet. A floating skull has been reported by several visitors, allegedly from an execution that went wrong. The hangman miscalculated the weight of the criminal, and he was decapitated by the rope. The Black Lady who roams the art gallery is supposedly the ghost of a Victorian woman who cut off her violent husband's head with a billhook. And here we have Framlingham Castle, Suffolk, UK. Famous as the castle where Queen Mary I was kept imprisoned by her brother Edward VI before she became queen, Framlingham is also known for more supernatural occurrences. Visitors to the castle have encountered the faces of spirits in some of the old rooms, noises on the stairs, and the sounds of screams and children playing. Alright, here on the left, we have Nebworth House, Hertfordshire, UK. Lord Cobbold, the current owner of Nebworth, believes his ancestors, including the Victorian novelist, poet, and playwright Edward Bulwer Lytton, still haunt the house. Nebworth, so here in the picture on top, Nebworth is home to the Yellow Boy, who appears to guests as a premonition of their own death. Lord Castlereagh, a British foreign secretary in the 19th century, committed suicide after seeing him. Okay, bottom image is the grounds. Spinning Jenny was reportedly a young woman from the 18th century who killed herself after being prevented from seeing her lover. She haunts the room in the east wing. Bodiam Castle, East Sussex, UK. A red lady is said to haunt this castle, dating from 1385. She has been seen at night on one of the towers, staring out into the surrounding countryside, as if waiting for someone to return. A Victorian boy has also been seen on the castle's bridge, but he disappears halfway along, as if he fell in and drowned. Landguard Fort, Felixstowe, UK. There has been a fort guarding the port of Felixstowe since the reign of Henry VIII. There are many restless spirits said to haunt the old fort, including a Victorian gunner who walked out of a wall in the gift shop, a coach and horses that vanished through a long-gone entrance, and a Marine killed in 1667 who was seen standing sentry duty by soldiers stationed there in World War II. Predjama Castle, Slovenia. Built in the 13th century at the front of a large cave in a limestone cliff, the castle was viewed as almost impregnable. It was home to a robber baron named Erasm Luger, who was besieged by the forces of the Holy Roman Emperor. He was killed by a cannonball aimed at his toilet after being betrayed by a servant. Prisoners in the castle were tortured and then thrown into a cave. If they didn't die immediately, then their wounds or lack of food and water would kill them soon enough. The spirits of these victims are reported to haunt the castle to this day. Yeah, this one looks hella creepy. Chateau de Randon, Auvergne, France. Definitely butchering these names. Once owned by members of the French royal family, Randon was destroyed in a mystery fire in 1925. The family was no stranger to the occult, with one duke, later to become regent during Louis XV's minority, asking a medium to predict the date of Louis XIV's death. Perhaps other spirits were invoked by his descendants that linger here today. Ballantor Castle, Perthshire, UK. Abandoned since the 1960s but now being restored, the castle is in a remote part of Scotland. There are many documented supernatural occurrences at the property, including a housekeeper who smelt Lady Langman's perfume on the day that she died abroad, and a sighting of a small boy dressed as a gypsy on the drive. Yep, definitely taken out of a horror film. Cemeteries. On the left, we have Weeping Woman sculpture, Greyfriars Burial Ground, Perth, UK. Founded on the site of an old Franciscan monastery destroyed in the Scottish Reformation. This burial ground boasts some gravestones dating back as far as 1580. Some of the older stones have been relocated, and it is believed that this may have disturbed the residents, causing the mysterious shadows and strange noises that have been seen and recorded. Okay, before I continue, let me just check chat real quick. Have a good night, Tori. Thank you for being here. Sorry I missed it. Didn't have chat there. Alright, so cemeteries. Where are ghosts or other spectral happenings most likely to be found? Logic would suggest that a burial ground containing hundreds or thousands of bodies is more likely to have at least one restless soul present than a quiet road junction or a regular family home. The evidence presented by the cemeteries featured in this chapter, most of which are over a century old, appears to show that these sites are indeed hotbeds of hauntings, apparitions, and unexplained occurrences. Throughout Europe, as cities outgrew the capacities of their medieval churchyards, the rapid founding of Victorian-era suburban burial grounds, with their elaborate Gothic memorials, provided fresh impetus for the discovery of ghosts and unnatural phenomena. In America, too, new graveyards were established on the outskirts of towns and cities as more immigrants arrived to seek their fortunes. Today, many of these now faded cemeteries are notorious for their nocturnal visitors. Here in this chapter is just a small sample of the many cemetery locations where otherworldly events have been observed and even documented on film. Some of the cemeteries shown may be familiar as they have been used as locations for movies. As you will see, though, truth can be stranger than fiction. Egyptian Avenue, Highgate Cemetery, London, UK. One of the magnificent 7 cemeteries established to accommodate the rising numbers of Victorian London's dead, Highgate saw tens of thousands buried in its 17 acres over approximately a century from the time it opened in 1839. Entrance, Precious Blood Cemetery, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, USA. In 1955, Tropical Storm Diane broke a nearby dam, causing a flood that washed 50 coffins from their graves, their corpses left behind in the town as the water subsided. Today, the site is renowned for its apparitions, floating orbs, and strange noises. Sculpture, Greyfriars Kirkyard, Edinburgh, UK. The most famous resident spirit is Sir George Bloody Mackenzie, who had many people tortured and killed close to the spot where his mausoleum lies today. Sculpture. The sculpture is a Père Lachaise Cemetery, Paris, France. Now home to over 1 million graves, this world-famous cemetery opened in 1804. It is the final resting place of many famous people and many restless spirits. Wow, 1821. Wow, that's pretty creepy. Okay, so the information it has about this overleaf, it says Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors, is said to walk near his grave, which is regularly daubed with graffiti and then cleaned on behalf of his family. Huh. Interesting. Path. Père Lachaise Cemetery, Paris, France. The spirits of Marcel Proust and Maurice Ravel, who were partners in life, are said to leave their graves and go in search of each other at night. St. Louis Cemetery, number 1, New Orleans, USA. The last resting place of Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen who haunts the nearby French Quarter, dressed in a distinctive red and white turban. Visitors to her grave have felt suddenly ill or touched by an unseen hand. Easton Baptist Church, Connecticut, USA. Behind the church at Easton is a sinkhole in which a number of victims' corpses have been found. Visitors to the area report a number of audio and visual phenomena, including a pair of floating red eyes. Whoa. Union Cemetery, Easton, Connecticut, USA. Opened in the early 18th century, this burial ground is haunted by a white lady who may be wearing a wedding dress. A number of motorists have reported hitting a woman on one of the nearby roads, but no body can be found when they stop. Sightings of the lady date back to the 1940s, and her fame has brought many visitors to Easton. Whoa. Mad Jack Fuller's Mausoleum, Brightling Churchyard, East Sussex, UK. Fuller was a colorful character who enjoyed building follies like his mausoleum, constructed in 1811. He is said to be sat upright inside, wearing a top hat and a bottle of claret wine next to him on a table. However, his ghost is supposed not to haunt the churchyard, as why would anyone want to leave a good claret? Hotels and public places. Some locations... Well, wait, hold on. Let me read what this is first. It says Blair Street Vaults, Edinburgh, UK. Formed by the building of the North and South Bridges in the late 18th century, these vaults were initially used for storage before becoming housing for the city's poorest inhabitants. It is rumored rumored that Burke and Hare, the infamous body snatchers, hunted for some of their victims here. Abandoned in the 19th century, the vaults lay forgotten about until a chance rediscovery in 1985, since when several ghosts have been reported. So some locations are frequented by so many people that it is inevitable, due to the laws of probability alone, that some tragedy would occur that could lead to reports of paranormal activity. Deaths from natural causes are quite commonplace in hotels, but occasionally a single event will take place, a murder, a suicide, that may leave a restless spirit behind. Reports of mass hauntings are less common but do occur, a most notable example being at the site of the horrific Joelma building fire in Sao Paulo. Some of the poorest areas of cities would have high population densities and poor sanitation, allowing disease and death to spread throughout the community quickly, and the tensions and temptations of living in close proximity would lead to a high murder rate. For some communities, such as in the Far East with World War II, the arrival of war saw mass deaths, torture, and imprisonment. For those in the American Gold Rush, there was plenty of opportunity for self-enrichment, but life was hard, and many found solace in whiskey and the seamier side of society. In these public places, it appears that many spirits have not found rest. From mysterious figures in celebrity haunts to unexplained noises in the lane made famous by the Beatles, it proves there is nothing normal about the paranormal. Banff Springs Hotel, Banff, Canada. The current hotel building dates from the 1920s and has had many celebrity visitors, including Marilyn Monroe, who had a honeymoon there. A long-serving Scottish bellman called Sam Macaulay is supposed to have haunted the hotel since his death in the 1970s. I'm kind of tempted to say that maybe this is the one that was, well, maybe they'll say it, but it looks a lot like the one that was used in the Shining, but maybe I'm wrong. Marble Staircase, Banff Springs Hotel, Banff, Canada. One of the most famous ghostly residents is known as the Bride. In the 1920s, a bride is supposed to have tripped on a staircase in her wedding dress and fallen to her death, possibly also setting light to herself on a lit torch as she fell. She is seen on the staircase or in the hotel ballroom waiting for her first dance. Well. Okay, so this is a Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, USA. The hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining after he visited in 1974. The Stanley is built on quartz rock that attracts the supernatural. Sightings of unusual phenomena have been made all over the hotel, including the hotel's founder, E.O. Stanley, and his wife. Could you imagine that guy that's right there was not meant to be in the picture, and everyone is just wondering now, like, who this person is? Original room keys, Stanley Hotel, Estes Park, Colorado, USA. Room 217 is supposed to be haunted by Elizabeth Wilson, a former chambermaid who, in June 1911, was blown into the dining room below in a gas leak explosion. She survived with broken ankles, but came back to work at the hotel until her death in the 1950s. She reportedly unpacks and puts away guests' clothing. Mary King's Close, Edinburgh, UK. During the 17th century, the plague struck this close below the city chambers inhabited by some of Edinburgh's poorest. It was later partly closed off, with victims' bodies allegedly still in place. Ghostly figure, Mary King's Close, Edinburgh, UK. In 1992, a Japanese psych touring the close encountered Annie, a young girl supposedly left behind to die by her family, who tugged at her leg. Annie's room has since become a much visited attraction. Casadaga Hotel, Casadaga, Florida, USA. Built to help service the visitors to the Casadaga spiritualist camp, the hotel is now renowned for its many ghostly inhabitants. The best known is an Irish singer called Arthur, who lived and died at the hotel in the 1930s. There are many reports of guests smelling gin, cigars, and even Arthur's body odor in room 22. Okay, same place. George Colby, a medium from New York, was told by his spirit guide, Seneca, to found a community in Casadaga for fellow spiritualists in 1875. The town has become a leading center for those wishing to commune with the dead. Below. Other ghosts that have been encountered at the hotel include Gentleman Jack, who was fond of women, and two small girls named Sarah and Caitlin. Here on the right. Edificio Praça da Bandeira, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Formerly the Jolma building, this was the scene of a deadly fire in 1974 that killed 179 people. Renamed and refurbished, the building reopens a few years later, but occupants have reported fire alarms being triggered without cause and numerous apparitions seen on the building's stairs. Lawang Sewu, Semarang, Indonesia. Built as the head office of the Dutch East Indies Railway Company a century ago, Lawang Sewu was the scene of a bitter 5-day fight between pro-independence forces and the Japanese troops that remained in Java after the war until the Dutch could return. So many were killed that it is said that the victims haunt the building to this day. Well, this actually reminds me a lot of a fort that we have back in the Dominican Republic, which obviously makes sense why it would remind me of it. Old Diplomat Hotel, Baguio City, Philippines. Built by American monks around the 1900s, Catholic priests, nuns, and others were reportedly tortured, raped, and killed there by Japanese secret police before the building became the site of their last stand during the liberation in 1945. Later used as a hotel specializing in psychic surgery, the building was then abandoned in the 1980s. The spirits of the victims of the Japanese are now said to roam the area. Again, I wonder if that person was meant to be in the picture. Okay. Interior Sterling Opera House, Derby, Connecticut, USA. Built in 1898, the Opera House is no longer in use but has been the scene of several supernatural encounters, including doors being closed and lights switching on and off. A ghost is said to be often found sitting in one of the seats in the lowest right of the photograph. Okay, on top we have Birdcage Theater, Tombstone, Arizona, USA. Opened on the 26th of December, 1881, the Birdcage quickly gained a rough reputation that reportedly saw 26 people killed during its 8 years of operating as a 24-hour theater, brothel, saloon, and casino. Below, the interior of the Birdcage. Shut at the end of the silver mining boom, the theater was closed up for more than 50 years before reopening in 1934 as a museum. Visitors report seeing the spirits of former miners and prostitutes, and hearing old music and laughter. Here on the opposite, we have Monte Vista Hotel, Flagstaff, Arizona, USA. A bank robber died of his wounds in the hotel bar while celebrating his heist, and his spirit is said to greet the bar staff when they open in the morning. Penny Lane, Liverpool, UK. The road made famous by the Beatles song has been the scene of paranormal activity since the 1890s and has its own haunted house. Number 44 has a spirit that has been heard walking at night by the house's occupants and their neighbors, and a girl with long blonde hair has been seen at one of the upper windows. Cromed Pier, Cromed, Norfolk, UK. The current pier was built in 1902, but the Great Storm of 1953 damaged the Pavilion Theatre at the end of the pier to such a degree that it had to be rebuilt in 1955. It is said to be haunted by the ghost of Dick Condon, the Irish comedian who has appeared on stage with performers. Casino degli Spiriti, Canareccio, Venice, Italy. The House of Souls is the scene of several tragic deaths, including a young woman in the 1950s whose body was cut up and thrown into the lagoon. The building is haunted by the spirit of Luso, a painter who committed suicide due to his unrequited love for the lover of the artist Giorgione. Houses, mansions, and palaces. Mad Woman's Room, Norton Conyers, Yorkshire, UK. The inspiration for the character of Mrs. Rochester in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, according to a legend, a mad woman who's kept locked in this room at Norton Conyers during the 18th century. The spirit of Mad Mary is supposed to be still in residence. Even the grandest houses sometimes hide the darkest secrets. In previous centuries, a rich family could hide a dark deed or an embarrassing illness from prying eyes, regardless of the consequences. From murders to mental illness or even possible suicide, social scandal could be avoided by incarceration or concealment. It was easier for the individual to suffer rather than the family as a whole. However, the stories could never be fully hidden thanks to servants or other locals, and many stories that have subsequently emerged of ghosts and hauntings have now become things of celebration, encouraging visitors to these grand old buildings. Experience of the paranormal reaches as high as the French royal family and the sightings of Marie Antoinette herself in the gardens of the Versailles. In Germany, too, former politicians are reputed to haunt their Parliament building, while a Belgian family allegedly continued to reside in their long-abandoned grand home in a Cairo suburb. Not all of these sightings are of ancient historical figures, however. As you will discover in this chapter, John Lennon both saw paranormal activity and has reportedly been seen by those visiting the Dakota building after his death. It seems that money can't buy you love or eternal rest. I see what you did there, book. A quick pause before I continue. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is a special episode of my True Crime and Murder Mystery Wednesday episodes. Again, we're doing a picture book today. This is Haunted Places by Robert Grenville. And it's literally showing real life places of real life places that are haunted. What do you mean, huh? What's the huh meaning? Gaineswood, Demopolis, Alabama, USA. Built by General Nathan Whitfield just before the American Civil War, the house is reportedly haunted by the general's sister-in-law, Evelyn Carter. After her death, her body could not be buried as the ground was frozen, and she was kept in a sealed box in the cellar. It was said that her spirit objected to this, as the haunting began shortly after her death, and continued even after her body was finally laid to rest the following spring. Whoa. Okay, so this previous page that we saw here, this is a basement in Houghton Mansion, Massachusetts, USA, built by A.C. Houghton, the first mayor of North Adams. The mansion is haunted by members of the family as a result of a tragic car accident. Whoa. Here on the right, this is the interior of the mansion. It says the mayor's youngest daughter died after the car driven by their chauffeur rolled over. The chauffeur was exonerated, but shot himself in the grounds of the house the next day. Dang. Within a fortnight, Houghton himself died of his injuries sustained in the crash. And this is the interior. The house is now owned by the Masons. Members have reported hearing unexplained noises and doors opening and shutting without warning. Vale Mansion, Independence, Missouri, USA. Colonel Vale and his wife Sophia built this house between 1871 and 1881. 2 years later, Sophia, his wife, who had been diagnosed with suspected stomach cancer, was found dead of a morphine overdose while Colonel Vale was away on business. She is reported to haunt the mansion, as a ghostly figure has been seen by many visitors. Oh, this one's in California. Okay, I think I know which one this is. Winchester Mystery House, San Jose, California, USA. Sarah Winchester was the wife of the heir to the Winchester rifle fortune, but she lost both her daughter and husband prematurely. After visiting a medium who advised her to build a house for all the spirits killed by the Winchester rifle, she moved to California and built this house. Of course. The Dakota Building, New York, USA. Most famous as the place where John Lennon was shot, the Dakota is also known for its spirits. Lennon himself saw a ghost that he named the Crying Lady, and some have claimed to have seen his ghost. Other apparitions include the little girl who often smiles at visitors, a young man with the face of a boy, and Edward Clark, who built the Dakota Building in the 1880s. Okay, here on the left we have Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, Fall River, Massachusetts, USA. Lizzie Borden was the daughter of Andrew, a property developer who had remarried after her mother's death. On August 4th, 1892, Andrew and his second wife were killed. Same place. Lizzie was a prime suspect, but was acquitted by a jury. It is thought by some that the spirits of Andrew and Abby, the two victims, remain in the house to this day. Lalaurie Mansion. If you guys have seen American Horror Story, I think it's season 3 or 4, the one with the witches. This is actually featured in the show. So this is a Lalaurie house, New Orleans, USA. The Delphine Lalaurie was a society hostess who had a reputation of mistreating the slaves who worked in her house. In 1834, a fire broke out in the kitchen and witnesses described finding the cook chained to the fireplace and other slaves who had been horribly mutilated. A grave was reportedly discovered with bodies of slaves showing similar mistreatment. Lalaurie fled before she could be tried, but her victims' spirits remain in the house. Reichstag, Berlin, Germany. Completed in 1894 as the seat of the Imperial German Diet, and burnt in an arson attack in 1933 that Hitler and the Nazis used to consolidate power, the Reichstag building is now home to the German parliament, the Bundestag. The building is also reportedly home to the spirits of former German politicians. Okay, this is the cover of this book. Alright, let's see what it says. Alright, so previous page on the left, so this one here, where the light's shining, we have the Palace of Versailles, France. In 1901, two English academics, Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, had a series of strange encounters during a visit to Versailles, not least with Marie Antoinette herself, as well as some guards and an evil count. They later discovered they had visited on the anniversary of the sacking of Versailles in 1792 during the French Revolution. Here on the right, which is the cover of the book, is Ecclesgrave House, St. Cyrus, UK. Local legend tells of an Eskimo curse on the Forsyth Grant family who used to own the house. Osbert Forsyth Grant was cursed in 1911 by some Eskimos on a whaling ship that he commanded, which was wrecked shortly afterwards. His body was never found, but it is said his father's spirit is still seen on the terrace today, watching for his son's return home. Hope everyone's doing great. Enjoying this special episode. Thank you for being here. Pakistan. A former summer residence of Shivratan Chandratan Mohata, a businessman from Rajasthan in what is now India. The palace is now home to an art collection. There have been reports of objects being moved without explanation and loud noises with no apparent cause. Some guards claim that the spirits come from the time of the British Raj, where the United Kingdom ruled the country. Baron and Payne Palace, Cairo, Egypt. Built by a Belgian baron who had helped build the Paris metro, the palace was supposed to have had a revolving main tower, from which his wife jumped due to her husband's love affair. A few years later, the baron's daughter was also found dead in the building. Although the building is long abandoned, locals claim to have heard voices and found objects moved between rooms without apparent cause. Plasteg, Flintshire, UK. Originally built in 1610, Plasteg is reputed to be the most haunted building in Wales, with no fewer than 15 ghosts, the most famous being the woman in white. One candidate was a daughter of the owner who planned to run away with a farmer's son, but slipped and fell to her death in the well. When her body was later found without her valuables, her lover killed himself rather than be accused of her murder. Speak Hall, Liverpool, UK. A lady in white seen at Speak Hall is thought to be the spirit of Mary Norris, who married Lord Sidney Beauclerk, a notorious gambler, in 1796. When Beauclerk told his wife he had lost their fortune, she threw their infant son from the window, then killed herself. Since then, she has haunted the property, once even appearing during a dinner party. Coolbawn House, Country Wexford, Ireland. Built in the 19th century for a newly married couple, Coolbawn is haunted by a servant girl who was struck by lightning during a storm and instantly killed, leaving the outline of her body etched into the window glass. The house was later burnt by the IRA, but her figure is still seen at the window where she died. Sturdivant Hall, Selma, Alabama, USA. Sturdivant Hall was the former home of John McKee Parkman, president of the First National Bank of Selma. Parkman lost the bank a significant sum speculating in cotton and was imprisoned by the local governor. He tried to escape prison in 1867 but was killed in an attempt and is now believed to haunt his former home. Visitors have seen doors and latches being opened, chairs rocking by themselves, and heard footsteps moving around. Industry. Boston Light, Little Brewster Island, Boston, USA. First established in 1716, the Boston Light is the oldest lighthouse site in the country. The first keeper, George Worthylake, drowned with his family and others in November 1718 on his way back to the lighthouse. 2 weeks later, his replacement also drowned. Modern keepers have recounted unexplained laughter and a little girl sobbing, while radios playing rock music have been switched subtly to a classical station. Trolling. Jeez. Industrial locations may not seem at first to be the most likely source of hauntings. But, as this chapter shows, there is no shortage of unexplained phenomena in the workplace. Without modern health and safety standards, accidents were commonplace in the industrial era, and those accidents were often gruesome and horrific, due to the primitive machinery in use at the time. Even relatively simple tasks like painting the exterior of a lighthouse could lead to a fatal fall, and tragic events involving children were frequent, as many worked alongside adults in dangerous conditions. Buildings that once housed hundreds or even thousands of workers have been left abandoned for decades. leaving behind eerie silence where once machinery rang out, and perhaps the old figure half glimpsed in the distance. Even when the building has been restored and reopened as a museum, as with Slater Mill and Sloss Furnaces, for example, reports of unexplained occurrences and sensations felt by visitors have not diminished. In locations where many have died over the years, it is often difficult to identify who may be responsible for any haunting activity, unless you have such a well-documented case as Slag Wormwood of Sloss Furnaces, whose legendary cruelty casts a shadow that looms large a century after his death. Okay, speaking of which, Slater Mill, Rhode Island, USA. Built in 1793, Slater Mill was the first water-powered textile mill in America. In the early years of the mill, small children were used to clean and repair the machines while they were in operation, which could lead to injuries or death. Now an industrial museum, visitors have reported hearing the death cries and screams of those young children. Other buildings on the Slater Mill site are also haunted by malevolent spirits who have been known to scratch visitors, an unknown male and female presence, and a little girl named Becca who answers questions by divining rod. Okay, here on the left, so this is all Sloss Furnaces, Birmingham, Alabama, USA. Here on the left, from 1882 to 1971, the Sloss Furnaces produced iron for building projects all over America. However, it was notorious as a dangerous place to work, especially those who worked for James Slag Wormwood on the graveyard shift. No fewer than 47 people died under Wormwood's supervision, while many others were injured or maimed in accidents caused by overwork. His reign of terror ended in October 1906, when he fell into a vat of melting ore and was instantly vaporized. He is said to haunt the site today, pushing visitors and shouting at them to get to work. And here at the bottom we have, today the site is preserved as a monument to America's industrial heritage, but it is also one of the country's most haunted places. Little Brewster Island, Boston. Several miles to the east of the island on which the Boston Light sits is an area of sea known as the Ghost Walk, reputed to be haunted by local sailors. The lighthouse's beam of light and foghorn cannot penetrate this mysterious area. St. Augustine Lighthouse, Florida, USA. Although St. Augustine is the oldest city in America, the lighthouse is relatively modern and was built in 1824. One of its keepers, Mr. Andrew, was painting the tower when he fell to his death. Another keeper, Peter Rasmussen, was a regular cigar smoker, and his cigars can still be smelt by visitors today. In the late 1800s, Hezekiah Pitty was hired to renovate the lighthouse. His two daughters disobeyed his instructions to stay away from his cart, and they slid to their death in the bay below. Their laughter can occasionally be heard at night. Institutions. Okay, so this is the former HM Prison, Shrewsbury in Shropshire, UK. The former prison in Shrewsbury was built on the site of a much older gaol, known as the Dana. Several executions took place there in the 20th century alone, with the bodies buried in unmarked graves, and it became notorious for a high rate of suicides among inmates held there. Visitors have reported seeing figures, hearing footsteps and strange noises, and cell doors shutting unexpectedly. But modern treatment methods for those unfortunate enough to find themselves at the fringes of society, as either criminals or the mentally ill, are exactly that, modern. It is only in the last decades that we have seen more compassionate regimes introduced in some of society's institutions. Many of the former prisons and asylums were built with good intentions and the latest thinking, but quickly they became the worst kind of place, overcrowded, insanitary, and a source of suffering in themselves. What is most shocking, perhaps, is how recently these bastions of Victorian-era thinking and architecture were closed. Although for many inmates conditions did improve from the nadir of the early 20th century, the decaying buildings and fabric designed for outdated purposes and needs would have remained an unpleasant experience. In the light of the suffering, it is no surprise to hear stories of horrific deaths and abuse, sometimes at the hands of the guards themselves rather than other inmates, as well as suicides and rioting. Many visitors to the locations in the following pages report hearing unexplained screams. Some institutions have found new lives as fashionable homes or tourist attractions, but many now stand ruined as testament to those who never left their confines. Yep. Alcatraz, San Francisco, California, USA. So, yeah. Alcatraz. It's crazy how I've lived here. Like, my wife's been there, but I personally have never been to Alcatraz before. If you don't know, there were a lot of big names criminals like Al Capone that were imprisoned there. Alcatraz has been a military fort and briefly a haven for the dispossessed, but it is rightly notorious for its use as a prison, especially in the 20th century, with inmates including Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly, the real actual one, not what we have today. The prison regime was harsh and a number of inmates died. In the 1940s, one prisoner complained of a presence in his cell with glowing eyes. Despite his screams, he was not allowed out. His body was found strangled the next morning. Today, tourist guides regularly report the sounds of screaming and other unexplained noises. Even a banjo, Al Capone's favorite instrument while he was held down there. Alright. So this, what we're looking at now is a former Atlanta prison farm, Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Opened in 1945, this prison facility was a fully functioning farm for minor offenders, with up to 1,000 inmates at its peak. The site was closed and abandoned in 1995 and experienced a major fire in 2009, but a number of visitors have encountered paranormal activity and even glimpsed faces of former inmates. So that would be this one here. Alright, so on the left we have the Burlington County Prison, Mount Holly, New Jersey, USA. The last execution was held at Burlington County Jail in 1906, but the prison remained active until 1965. Now a museum, a few of those who died here remain, especially near the maximum security cell on the second floor. Workmen have heard screams and strange noises, while tools have been moved without warning. Here we have Buffalo State Asylum, New York, USA. Opened in 1880, the asylum was an attempt to improve treatment and general conditions for patients, but many of the methods used would not be seen as humane today, and it was extremely crowded and insanitary. The asylum closed in 1974, but unofficial visitors to the site report regular loud and unexplained screams. Okay, so we're still at the Buffalo State Asylum. So this one here is a doorway. Some of the treatments used at Buffalo State, including trepanning and experimentation with destroying parts of the brain to see the effects. Wow. Classifying and diagnosing patients was at a very primitive stage, and so patients with different conditions were kept incarcerated here, ranging from those with simple cognitive issues to the criminally insane, although they were kept separate from each other. Other noises heard by those on the site are those usually associated with suffering. The former asylum is now listed as a heritage building, and redevelopment plans have been submitted, so it is likely to have new occupants soon. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, USA. Opened in 1829, the Eastern State Penitentiary was extremely innovative in its treatment of prisoners. Each prisoner was to be kept in solitary confinement so that they could reflect upon their crime and truly repent. Famous former inmates include Al Capone and Slick Willie Sutton. Here we have Gargoyle that's on the Eastern State Penitentiary. Although the Eastern State spawned many imitators, eventually the solitary confinement system fell out of favor, and so the building was converted to a more conventional style prison until it was closed and abandoned in 1971. Okay, so we have an overleaf. Okay, so we're still at the Eastern State Penitentiary. Okay, so it says, conditions at the prison were harsh, with prisoners being put in cold water baths, then hung on a wall to dry in winter, gagged, or, for the worst inmates, left in the hole, a dark windowless cell without any facilities or daylight. Suicides and death were common at the prison, and so a number of prisoners' spirits are thought to have remained behind. One tour guide has described how he was gripped by a negative energy in one cell as contorted faces appeared on the wall opposite him. Others report seeing figures and hearing footsteps, wailing, and screams. Hey Mushroom Cat, thank you for joining. Hope you're having a good night. We're going through some haunted places all around the world. Right now, we're in the institution section, so these are actual real places that exist and that you can visit if you're into like ghost hunting. Okay, so on the previous page, which is what we just saw here, it's called the Root Cellar in Rutland. It's a Rutland prison camp in Massachusetts, USA. Opened in 1903 in what is now a state park, the camp only remained in use for minor criminals until 1934, so little now remains. Some 59 inmates were buried at the site. Visitors to the site have reported strange noises and figures, including one spirit believed to be a warden's wife. Okay, so here. Cell block. Kilmainham Gaol, Dublin, Ireland. Described as Ireland's answer to Alcatraz, the gaol was built in 1796. Many of those fighting for Ireland's independence were held here, and some were executed by firing squad after the Easter Rising in 1916. The gaol closed in 1924, but numerous supernatural occurrences have been described, including one painter who was pinned against the wall by a strange force. Lights have been turned on repeatedly in the chapel, and sudden footsteps being heard without any apparent cause. Whoa. Okay, so this one that we just saw right here, this is the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, USA, and this one as well, what we're looking at right now, it's the same place. Originally intended as a place to reform young boys before they became criminals, the reformatory building was converted to a prison in the early 20th century before closing in 1990. Although no executions were being held here, a number of inmates were unlawfully killed. Various movies were filmed here, including Tango and Cash and The Shawshank Redemption. That's why it looks familiar. Basement staircase in the same Ohio State Reformatory, Mansfield, Ohio. Helen, a warden's wife in the 1950s, accidentally shot herself with her husband's gun, and her spirit is said to haunt the old warden's house. Visitors to the cell blocks have felt strong forces pushing them, while the figure of a young man has been sighted running away from anyone entering the basement. Alright, so this next page that we're going to see is the Pennhurst State School, Spring City, Pennsylvania, USA. It says, opened in 1908 as the Pennhurst Home for the Feeble-Minded and Epileptic, it was finally closed in the 1980s after a journalist investigated the school's practices. Visitors to the site have seen a little girl, as well as other supernatural phenomena. Spooky indeed. Grenville, Smallpox Hospital, Roosevelt Island, New York, USA, on an island in the heart of New York City. This former 100-bed hospital opened in 1836 to care for smallpox victims. Over 13,000 patients died before the hospital closed 30 years later. A fire in the early 1980s left the building in ruins. Visitors to the site have heard strange noises, and the figure of an old woman has been reported walking in the grounds. Wow. 13,000 patients. That's crazy. Okay, so the previous page, which is this one, is the Trans-Allegheny Asylum, West Virginia, USA. Opened in 1861 to improve the treatment of the mentally ill, almost 2,500 patients were housed in conditions designed for only 250 people. Wow. Many died in appalling circumstances, some of them murdered by other patients, before the asylum's closure in 1994. Many visitors have heard a number of unexplained noises, including laughter, and a spirit called Jacob allegedly calls the Civil War wing his home. And here, it's the main cell block at a West Virginia State Penitentiary. Built in 1866, like many of the institutions of its time, the building was quickly filled to overcapacity, with conditions for the inmates rapidly deteriorating, as well as the many executions carried out on site by hanging or electric chair. Those incarcerated risked death from other violent prisoners, riots, and disease. Okay, these are all images of the West Virginia State Penitentiary. The prison closed in 1995, but its reputation as a haunted site had been established long before. The most frequent sighting is that of the maintenance man, killed by inmates because he informed on them to the prison guards. Inmate Roberts was the victim of a guard's beating in the 19th century that went too far. Roberts' remains were supposedly hidden behind a wall, and he haunts the room where he was killed. The spirit of Avril Atkins haunts the gallows where he was hanged, but the rope snapped and he fell to the bottom of the gallows, injuring his head badly. Undeterred by this, the guards promptly hanged him again, this time successfully. Damn. Okay, where is this? Okay, so previous image, this one, this image as well, are both in restaurant RAF West Rainham, Norfolk, UK. An active RAF bomber command base during World War II, the station was closed in 1996 and has been left abandoned, but it has gained a reputation for being extremely haunted. One malevolent spirit, a black shadow, is found in the chapel and is thought to be a murder victim. The wife of an American officer stationed at the base had the spirit of a Polish pilot from World War II walk right through her and disappear through a wall. A mechanic who committed suicide in the armory has been seen hanging from the building's rafters. Other visitors have seen strange lights on the base and have reported strange noises from the base's former hospital. Religious places. Skulls. Catacombs. Paris, France. The catacombs of Paris hold the remains of countless millions of the dead, shoveled into the former quarries under the streets of Paris when the old cemeteries could no longer cope. Access is now only permitted by tour, and many visitors have reported sightings, unexplained noises, and temperature changes while visiting the limestone tunnels. Where the divine is thought to be present, visions are often common. Sites such as churches and former monasteries that resonate with spirituality can act as lightning rods for unusual visions. So a neutral observer could argue that individuals might be predisposed to see and hear events and occurrences of a supernatural kind. Many religious places are also surrounded by or contain the resting places of the dead, so that death and the afterlife are never far from the thoughts of those who visit. In some locations, shown in this chapter, the bones of the dead themselves provide decorations for the sites in question. where the bones of the poor or the long ago buried have been used to create patterns or symbols that attract tourists and the curious. As cultures and beliefs have changed over time, so some of the sites that were once significant and thriving communities are now left as ruins, stripped of their treasures and allowed to decay, abandoned, and neglected. So it is unsurprising, perhaps, that many churches and monasteries should provide so many examples of sightings and unusual phenomena, particularly hooded monks or mysterious shadowy figures prowling the grounds. Perhaps the energies of these long-departed penitents pervade the stones, and they reenact their daily rituals still. Entrance: Greyfriars Priory, Dunwich, UK. Little remains of the old medieval port of Dunwich, most of which has fallen into the sea. Locals say you can still hear the church bells tolling if the wind is blowing in the right direction. If the ruins of the Greyfriars Priory still stand and are said to be haunted by former monks who paced the boundaries of their old home. Whoa. This looks a lot like that old Castlevania intro, like for the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo games. Huh. Mont Saint-Michel, Normandy, France. A Benedictine abbey that dominates the surrounding countryside. Mont Saint Michael was the location of a bloody battle between the French garrison and an English army in 1434. The ghost of the French commander, Louis d'Estouteville, is reputed to guard the island to this day. Okay, this is the same one. Mont Saint-Michel has seen several sieges and battles over the years, but it was also used by the French kings as a prison, gaining it the nickname of the Bastille of the Seas, with political opponents kept in grim conditions. Later, opponents of the French Revolution were also kept there. Bro, how cool does that look? Pages are stuck together. Whoa. And if you can notice, they're all bones. And everything that's hanging is bones too. Here, you can get a better glimpse here. Ossuary, Sedlec, and the Czech Republic. Both images. Sedlec became a popular burial site in Central Europe after an abbot sprinkled some soil from Golgotha, where Jesus Christ was crucified, over the chapel's graveyard in 1278. Older bones in the graveyard were dug up and stored in the chapel to make room for new arrivals. These were arranged as decorations by a woodcarver in 1870. Ruins, Thetford Priory, UK. One of the many monasteries closed after the English Reformation, Thetford has become known for its sightings of monks and clinking their keys and chanting in Latin, and a mysterious hooded figure dressed in black who disappears when approached. parish church in ruins, Binham Priory, UK. A black monk has been observed during services in the parish church, which stands on the site of the old monastery. An old tunnel nearby is haunted by Jimmy Griggs, a fiddler who entered the tunnel with his dog. Only the dog reemerged, but Jimmy's fiddle can still sometimes be heard. Ruins, St. Andrew's Church, Walberswick, UK. George Orwell lived for many years in the neighboring town of Southwold. In July 1931, he visited St. Andrew's and saw a silent figure like a workman, dressed in brown. Orwell tried to follow, but the figure disappeared. Others have since described the apparition as a Victorian gentleman. Towns, cities, and islands. Corridor, Ellis Island, New York, USA. In its 62 years of use, Ellis Island was the gateway to America for approximately 12 million people, but not all voyages to the land of the free ended well. Many arrived at Ellis Island sick after their long journeys. Some 3,000 immigrants failed to recover and died in the purpose-built hospitals on the island, and some of their spirits are said to haunt the island still. Visitors have heard children's voices and seen moving furniture. Immigration controls have been active for centuries. When the Black Plague arrived in Europe, it swept through entire communities, decimating them in weeks. The scale of the epidemics was such that bodies would pile up faster than they could be buried, with all the risk of further infection that entailed. For any survivors, the experience would have been scarring. The word quarantine comes from Italian, after the Venetian practice of keeping those arriving at the city in isolation during plague years. Local legend tells that one of the islands in the Venetian lagoon used for plague burials is more human remains than soil. A similar method of controlling immigration was adopted by New York City centuries later, when it established the hospital and processing center on Ellis Island. Although the number of deaths may have been fewer and from different causes, there are still many buried on the island from those times. Islands encourage isolation, but the children's toys on the Island of the Dolls near Mexico City have brought visitors in the hope of hearing or seeing the figurines move or talk. One of the most famous events in American history is the Salem witch trials, when the Massachusetts town convinced itself of witchcraft in its midst, and innocents were killed. The spirits of those victims are said to haunt the town to this day. A little pause before I continue. I have actually been to Salem in Massachusetts, and it is by far like one of my favorite towns in all of the U.S. I've been to a few towns in the U.S. and dude, Salem, Massachusetts. It's just, it's beautiful. Like I went in like fall, and it was just so beautiful. I think Halloween was like maybe like a month before. I have a lot of pictures of that trip, and I remember seeing there's like a black house that used to belong to like a witch, and it still has the date on it, and it's very beautiful. So if you're ever in Massachusetts, I highly recommend going to Salem. It's pretty cool. I also want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I appreciate everyone stopping by, watching this spookiness with me. Alright. Let's continue. Island of the Dolls. Chomi, Xochimilco, Mexico City, Mexico. Some years ago, let me straight again. So, some years ago, Don Julian Santana Barrera found a young girl half drowned in mysterious circumstances, but he was unable to save her life. He later found a doll floating in the water that he assumed belonged to the dead girl. Dang. Whoa, okay. Okay, so these are all in the same place. Island of the Dolls, Xochimilco, Mexico City, Mexico. To appease the dead girl's spirit, Barrera hung the doll in one of the trees. He hung more and more dolls in the trees, but began to feel that the dolls themselves were possessed by the spirits of young girls. But in 2001, Barrera was found drowned in the same spot as the girl had been some 50 years before. Since then, the island has become notorious, attracting tourists who have brought their own dolls to hang in the trees. Some who have visited the island claim that they have heard the dolls talking to each other and seen their heads moving. Dude, that is so weird. Alright, so this house is called the House of the Seven Gables, Salem, Massachusetts. I don't think this is it. This is one of the houses, but I remember the one I was talking about specifically has it has a black roof on it as well. Salem is known for its infamous witch trials that saw 19 people executed in the summer of 1692. But there are many other haunted sites in the town that attract over 250 visitors every October. Okay, so the next page is Gravestone in Salem, Massachusetts. Sorry, so we're almost at the end. So it's a very new book, so it's hard to flip the pages correctly. Okay, so this is a gravestone. Shoot. Bridget Bishop, hanged, June 10th, 1692. Long live Bridget Bishop. So she was owner of a tavern, was the first of the Salem witch trials victims to be tried and executed. Her angry spirit is said to haunt a modern bar built on the site of an apple orchard that she owned, and Gallows Hill, where she was hanged on a gallows. Oh, I remember taking pictures of this. Okay, so we're still in Salem, Massachusetts. The history of the witch trials is told in the Salem Museum, the former town hall, but many guides offer walking tours of the main haunted sites, including the Danvers State Hospital, built on the site of the house of one of the judges of the trials, whose spirit has been seen stalking the grounds. Other popular destinations include the House of the Seven Gables, haunted by a former resident, Susan Ingersoll, a relative of the author Nathaniel Hawthorne, and the Old Town Jail, home of several restless spirits. Chapel, Poveglia, Venice, Italy. The chapel on the island of Poveglia in the Venetian lagoon was once part of an asylum built in the early 20th century and later abandoned. The doctor in charge is supposed to have thrown himself off the bell tower after being tortured by ghosts. Oh, where's this? Okay, so these are all the same place. This is the same place. We're still in Poveglia, Venice. The island was used in the 18th century as a quarantine station from ships arriving in Venice. Hundreds, if not thousands, died on the island of plague and hundreds, if not thousands, died on the islands of plague and other diseases, and many thousands more bodies of Venetian victims were buried there. In one plague outbreak alone, in 1576, about 50,000 people, 1/3 of the city's population, died, and there were 21 other attacks of the plague, including one in 1630 to 31 that killed 46,000 people. The island has a reputation for being full of restless souls. Its soil more human remains than earth. The doctor who jumped is said to have survived thanks to a ghostly mist that rose from the ground, only for it to choke him to death.
Thank you.
Whoa, Amy, thank you so much for that raid. Whoa, Party of 34. Welcome, Raiders, to Haunted Places. Thank you all for being here. Raiders, thank you so much for being here. We are actually on the last leg of our Haunted Places picture book showing. So we basically just showed images and read descriptions about haunted places that are found all across the world. We just passed the Salem in Salem, Massachusetts. Thank you all for being here. Amy, I really appreciate that. That is absolutely awesome. I really appreciate it. Big raid indeed.
Thank you. Far too kind.
Ooh, thank you for those bits, Amy. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Oh, and it's exclamation mark. Oh, for any mods that I have here, exclamation mark SO, and then the.
We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight.
Dude, I love that one. That one is so awesome. So yeah, like I said, there you go. Thank you for that, Munin. Alright, so enough of my face in this. So we'll go back to seeing this. Okay, so I'll just read this last one again. So this island in Poveglia, Venice, Italy, has a reputation for being full of restless souls. Its soil more human remains than earth. The doctor who jumped is said to have survived thanks to a ghostly mist that rose from the ground, only for it to choke him to death. Oh, dang. And that was actually the last one, but you know what? Just for you guys, I'll go back a little bit to the Salem one, because it's actually a little bit interesting. Okay, so for you Raiders, this is... Oh, Reaver Gameplays, have a great night. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that, Reaver. I hope you have a great night. Hope you have a productive day tomorrow. Okay, so really quickly before I finish. So this is a quarter Ellis Island in New York. So this one's actually a little bit spookier. Oh, I kind of All right, so this is Island of the Dolls in Xochimilco, Mexico City, Mexico. So, some years ago, Don Julian Santana Barrera found a young girl half drowned in mysterious circumstances.
Thank you. You're far too kind.
Thanks for that follow, MP Drip Drip. Thank you for that follow, Smash Cats. I appreciate that. I hope you're all having a great night tonight. All right, so
Thank you. You're far too kind.
Not finish without a fight.
I love that. I love that one. I sent it to B. I hope he adds it to his sound alerts. It's actually pretty cool. Smash Cats, thank you for joining chat. I appreciate that. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, so
The King of the North.
the King of the North. Okay, so, alright, so he found the young girl half drowned in mysterious circumstances, but he was unable to save her life. He later found a doll floating in the water that he assumed belonged to the dead girl. Alright, this is where it gets a little creepier. To appease the dead girl's spirit, Barrera hung the doll in one of the trees. He hung more and more dolls in the trees, but began to feel that the dolls themselves were possessed by the spirits of young girls. Barrera was found drowned. In 2001, Barrera was found drowned in the same spot as the girl had been some 50 years before. Since then, the island has become notorious, attracting tourists who have brought their own dolls to hang in the trees. Some who have visited the island claim that they have heard the dolls talking to each other and seen their heads moving. Amy, they are so creepy. I mean, look at this one. How creepy is that? Salem, Massachusetts. Okay, this one is called the House of the Seven Gables. So if anyone has been to Salem, Massachusetts, this is you've definitely seen this house before. If you haven't, definitely check out that town. Again, like I said before, I absolutely love it. So Salem is known for its infamous witch trials that saw 19 people executed in the summer of 1692. But there are many other haunted sites in the town that attract over 250,000 visitors every October. So, the next image we're going to see is Bridget Bishop, owner of a tavern, who was the first of the Salem witch trials victims to be tried and executed. Her angry spirit is said to haunt a modern bar built on the site of an apple orchard that she owned, and Gallows Hill, where she was hanged on a gallows. And this is Bridget Bishop's gravesite. Okay, this will be the last one. The history of the witch trials is told in the Salem Museum, the former town hall, but many guides offer walking tours of the main haunted sites, including the Danvers State Hospital, built on the site of the house of one of the judges of the trials, whose spirit has been seen stalking the grounds. Other popular destinations include the House of the Seven Gables, haunted by a former resident, Susan Ingersoll, a relative of the author Nathaniel Hawthorne, and the Old Town Jail, home of several restless spirits. I think the next one is the Italy one that we just did. So that, my friends, was Haunted Places. Terrible. Thank you for joining chat. I appreciate that. Little glimpse there. Oh, it's nice. I didn't see when this moved. Sweet. That was awesome. I mean, there are so many haunted places, and they're all. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter how much they would actually renovate it. They all look pretty creepy, in and of itself. I think I remember seeing the one in San Jose, because I remember going on a road and there was a house. It looked. I mean, the house looks extremely spooky. And it's right on top of a little, it's on a little cliff, but you can't access the house. It's extremely spooky. I want to see if I can find that picture, but I am very happy I was able to do this tonight. I am just going to check real quick who we will be rating tonight. You know, let's raid Kid. We're always talking about Kid all the time. I just might as well just raid him. I've never raided him before. So thank you all for being here. Just bear with me for 1 second. Let's raid Kid. Wait, what's his... Kid 810. Alright, he is playing Super People. I've never heard of that game, but we're about to find out. Okay, just 1 sec. So, thank you all for being here tonight. Mushroom Cat, Munin, as always, Munin, thank you for being here. Thank you for being my mod. Amy, thank you for that super duper raid. I really appreciate it. All of the raiders that came in, thank you very much. Tori stopped by. Yosef was here from the beginning. You guys all rock. Thank you for being part of tonight's show. Thank you for stopping by. And last but not least, thank you for your continued support. I'm going to start this raid on Kid. You guys have a very good night. This is the King Angel Show. Peace out.